So our next guest is, so we've had the pastor, the scientist, the journalist, and the activist, journalist activist, and another activist, right? Rebecca Fredericks has been fighting inside and outside teacher unions. She's done many editorials, been on all the major news networks, and she's known as a person who fights for the rights of the public sector. And she was in, I think, Politico. Was that something you were? I think I found it on you. They talk about you. Anyway, and the book that you wrote a book, Standing Up to Goliath, which is a great title for the whole panel, actually. So we're welcome Rebecca Fredericks.
Well, good morning again. What she didn't mention is that I was a long-time California public school teacher. And so I've seen all this evil on the inside. And it is evil. And so I'm so glad that Alex set me up for this talk, because all that Alex shared, he's right, it happened for a reason. It happened on purpose. But it wasn't happening early in our country. Our founders set up the most incredible educational system, classical liberal arts, with phonics and accurate science and accurate history and beautiful cursive. And the children were reading, I think it was something like over 90% of Americans could not only read well, but write well. You know, you'd be a farmer and you'd be writing these beautiful missives. Everyone was well educated. So what I fight for is, let's get back to that, okay? So we didn't call those public schools, but it was our American school system. The government was not involved at all. Basically, all the government did was, if a township was set up, they made sure that there was a plot of land for the school. Moms and dads, great teachers, were in charge of teaching the children well. They used things like Noah's speller, which, by the way, used scripture to teach children. And they used these little I can't remember the name of all of them now, but we had McGuffey Reader. We had, the Bible. That was our main textbook. We had the 10 Commandments on the wall of every classroom. This is American education, and this is what we need to get back to. So I'm going to tell you a little story. My husband's Aunt Jelaine, we just lost her last year at 103. Well, on her 101st birthday, we went to visit her, and she was a one-room schoolhouse teacher for 40-some years. And so we were just talking about the kids, and I asked her, Aunt Jelaine, what did you do about all the discipline problems? She looked at me like I was from Mars. Discipline problems? I never had a discipline problem. The parents supported me 100%. And she supported them 100%. The difference was the government wasn't in between Aunt Jelaine and the parents and the kids. I also asked her, Aunt Jelaine, what did you do about all those kids who were struggling, who couldn't, read well? She goes, I didn't have any of those. And if a kid was struggling, an older child would help. I didn't have a teacher's aide. One-room schoolhouse, farming community, Minnesota. These weren't rich people. It's not true that the poor can't learn. What's true is you can't learn if you're in a government school. That's what's true. So how did we go from that simple school setting? America's schools were small. They weren't these massive industrial complexes. And I'm really sorry to report to you men, a lot of this industrialness, huge schools, was because of sports. I know sports are important, but let's get them out of our schools. Let's get our schools small again and great again, and we can work out the sports another way. We can have community, whatever. We can have crosstown rivals. We can do all that. But they used that to manipulate us. Oh, grow your school so you can have a big football team. It's not good for the kids' education. These little schools, home schools, I don't want to call them community schools because that's what teachers' unions call them. Little neighborhood schools, that's what we did, one-room schoolhouses. So what happened? What made us go from excellent to a nightmare? Enter the so-called teacher unions. So it was in the 1800s that there was a teacher association created, And that teacher association was created by about 100 teachers, and they used to make these little tiny booklets called selections for memorizing. Within those little selections were Bible verses. There were stories of heroism, little poems about being kind and working hard and obeying your parents. They were great, and they made them so that they were really cheap, 1 penny a piece. So teachers could buy them every year to memorize with their students in the schools. Scripture? Yes. Separation of church and state? Not in the Constitution. I think Dr. Carson mentioned that last night. They've used that to manipulate and lie. Okay, so they made these little booklets, and so they started out as something good, but they were infiltrated by unions. So unions, well, why did they use the name union? Well, because people trusted unions. The union was the good side, right? They trusted that, just like people trusted teachers. So that's why they call them teacher unions. They're neither one. They're not teachers. They're not unions. They're a nefarious group with an evil communist agenda. I'm not going to just say socialism. I'm not going to just say Marxism. They're communists. How do I know that? If you read the communist goals, they're doing every single one. Okay? My dad taught me, looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it's a duck. Okay, these people are communists. Why did they pick on teachers? Because our founders told us this: the only way to keep a free republic is with a well-educated, moral citizenry that can self-govern. So they came in to destroy the morals of our children, to destroy their purposely destroy their education. They don't want them to read. They don't want them to write. You know why they don't want them to write in cursive? Because our founding documents are in cursive. Primary documents are in cursive. If you can't read your history, you don't know the truth, right? So this is all on purpose. So the unions claim to represent teachers. I'm here, longtime teacher. I even served as a union rep for a while to try to change things from the inside. It's evil on the inside. I can tell you they do not represent teachers, period. The teachers' unions are the reason. They're the money, the muscle, the lobbying, everything behind CRT, behind the radical sex ed. They helped start Black Lives Matter and bragged about it on a cover of their magazine. They're behind social emotional learning, dumbing down the education. They even rewrote the scientific method. They crossed out empirical evidence and the repeated steps of the scientific process, in other words, the most important part, and they changed it to consensus and theory. And then they only accept the consensus of radical leftists, other communists. The teacher unions are the problem in our schools. That's why I call them Goliath. So, for a long time, we were all forced to fund them, over 40 years. Forced to fund unions who still collect billions, with a B, annually, tax-free, and they spend it all to destroy your republic, to destroy your beliefs, to destroy your children, to destroy your virtue, to destroy your schools. Billions. Okay, the teachers' unions alone collect billions. Now let's add on all the other government unions. Did you know the CDC is run by a corrupt union? Explains a lot, doesn't it? All of our agencies, like the pastor said, all of our agencies have been infiltrated by these quote unions, these communists. They've infiltrated our institutions. This is why we're in trouble. So I always tell people, what do we need to do? We need to get rid of these unions, okay? So, the question about how do we keep the American dream? Number one, get unions out. How do we do that? Well, it's really actually pretty simple. We need the will, we need courage, but government unions were illegal. They were not allowed because you can't have someone putting someone in office and then bargaining on the other side of the table with them, all with taxpayer money. We knew that even the leader of one of those unions from the old days, some guy named Meany, I think, even he said we shouldn't have government unions. Okay, it's corrupt. So first, policy-wise, we need to make unions illegal again. Get them out. We also need to end collective bargaining. Collective bargaining is what took parents out of the conversation. So get unions out, including their allies like the ACLU and Planned Parenthood and Southern Poverty Law Center, out. All these special interest groups out. I was telling Alex earlier, if you don't get the unions out, you're going to just do school choice or you're going to just run for school board, that's like putting a Band-Aid on a heart attack. Okay, it's not going to work. The schools are corrupted by the unions. As long as they're there, that fire that he was talking about, it's going to keep blazing. I always tell people, it's funny, I always use kind of the same one. I always say, hey, look, the schoolhouse is on fire, the kids and teachers are inside. So we got to get them out. And we need to get these unions out. They're the ones who started the fire. We also, second thing we need to do, go back to our beginnings. Let's go back to the way Aunt Jelaine taught. Let's go back to classical liberal arts, 10 Commandments on the wall, Bible in the classroom, virtue, patriotism, critical thinking, including the Socratic method. Let's go back to debate. Let's go back to true science. Let's go back to true history. And yes, number one, phonics, phonics, phonics. Yes. 3. Thank you. 3, we must disband the national, state, and county departments of education. Goodbye. 4, as I mentioned earlier, end collective bargaining. You know, I think collective bargaining was granted to unions via executive order. I think that's true. Be easy to get rid of, wouldn't it? 5, we need to put parents and great teachers like Aunt Jelaine back in charge. So, how else can we get unions out? This is your homework. I'm a teacher. I give homework. So, here's your homework. You saw our movie trailer. We need you to adopt teachers, every teacher you know. And every single one of you has homework. You all have to do it. Adopt teachers. Tell them the truth. Show them our movie. I wrote a book, Standing Up to Goliath. It tells them all about the evil that their unions are doing. Did you know that the majority of teachers are conservatives? Did you know that the majority, and I'm talking in California too, the majority of teachers are people of faith? Did you know the majority of teachers don't agree with this evil agenda, but they've been so deceived that their union is not the evil, they keep paying them? About 85% of teachers are still paying these evil unions. And they don't have to. We took a case to the Supreme Court. They've been freed. They don't have to pay them anymore. We need your help to educate them. Adopt a teacher. That's your homework. What we need these teachers to do is a mass union exit. They need to get out. If they get out, we can defund these people. They also need to stand together so that we can eventually decertify them. Hopefully we can make them illegal, but if not, teachers can decertify them. They just have to stand together with a simple majority and decertify them. So how can we get to these solutions? Obedience to God. Faith in God. A ton of prayer. Fasting. Courage. Joshua 1:9. Have I not commanded you? Have I not suggested to you? Have I not, you should not. Commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid nor be dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. We need hard work, and we need to be willing to have uncomfortable conversations with indoctrinated teachers. So thank you for adopting teachers with me, and God bless you. We're going to win this war.